Greetings, Socrates.
Go away. I've already made too many offerings today, and you're not going to wring any more out of me. I'm too wise for that. Haven't you heard?
I seek no offering.
Then what do you want? Well, I'm sure that some of my associates camped outside would be glad to...
It's not them I seek, but you, O Socrates.
Then you shall be disappointed, stranger. Now kindly leave me to my hard-earned rest.
Very well.
Wait, I am asleep, dreaming, and you are the god Apollo.
What makes you think so?
These precincts are sacred to you. It is nighttime, and there is no lamp. Yet, I see you clearly. This is not possible in real life. So you must be coming to me in a dream.
You reason coolly. Are you not afraid?
I ask you in return, are you a benevolent or a malevolent god? If benevolent, then what do I have to fear? If malevolent, then I disdain to fear you. We Athenians are proud people and protected by our goddess, as you surely know. Twice we defeated the Persian Empire against overwhelming odds, and now we are defying Sparta. It is our custom to defy anyone who seeks our submission.
Even a god?
A benevolent god would not seek it. On the other hand, it is also our custom to give hearing to anyone who offers us honest criticism, seeking to persuade us freely to change our minds, for we want to do what is right.
Those two customs are two sides of the same valuable coin, Socrates. I give you Athenians great credit for honoring them.
My city is surely deserving of your favor. But why would an immortal want to converse with such a confused and ignorant person as me? I think I can guess your reason. You have repented of your little joke via the oracle, haven't you? Indeed, it was rather cruel of you to send us only a mocking answer, considering the distance we have come and the offerings we have made. So please tell me the truth this time. O fount of wisdom, who really is the wisest man in the world?
I reveal no facts.
Then I beg you, I have always wanted to know this. What is the nature of virtue?
I reveal no moral truths either.
Yet, as a benevolent god, you must have come here to impart some sort of knowledge. What sort will you deign to grant me?
Knowledge about knowledge, Socrates. Epistemology. I have already mentioned some.
You have? You said that you honor Athenians for our openness to persuasion and for our defiance of bullies. But it is well known that those are virtues. Surely, telling me what I already know doesn't count as a revelation.
Most Athenians would indeed call those virtues, but how many really believe it? And how many are willing to criticize a god by the standards of reason and justice?
All who are just, I suppose. For how could anyone be just if he follows a god of whose moral rightness he is not persuaded? And how is it possible to be persuaded of someone's moral rightness without first forming a view about which qualities are morally right?
Your associates out there on the lawn, are they unjust?
No.
And are they aware of the connections you have just described between reason, morality, and the reluctance to defer to gods?
Perhaps not sufficiently aware yet.
So, it is not true that every just person knows these things.
Agreed. Perhaps it's only every wise person.
Everyone who is at least as wise as you, then. Who else is in that exalted category?
Is there some high purpose in your continuing to mock me, wise Apollo, by asking me the same questions that we asked you today? It seems that your joke is wearing thin.
Have you, Socrates, never mocked anyone?
If, on occasion, I make fun of someone, it is because I hope he will help me to seek a truth that neither he nor I yet knows. I do not mock from on high, as you do. I want only to goad my fellow mortal into helping me look beyond that which is easy to see.
But what in the world is easy to see? What things are the easiest to see, Socrates?
Those that are before our eyes?
And what is before your eyes at this moment?
You are.
Are you sure?
Are you going to start asking me how I can be sure of whatever I say? And then, whatever reason I give, are you going to ask how I can be sure of that?
No. Do you think I have come here to play hackneyed debating tricks?
Very well. Obviously, I can't be sure of anything, but I don't want to be. I can think of nothing more boring, no offence meant, wise Apollo, than to attain the state of being perfectly secure in one's beliefs, which some people seem to yearn for. I see no use for it, other than to provide a semblance of an argument when one doesn't have a real one. Fortunately, that mental state has nothing to do with what I yearn for, which is to discover the truth of how the world is, and why, and, even more, how it should be.
Congratulations, Socrates, on your epistemological wisdom. The knowledge that you seek, objective knowledge, is hard to come by, but attainable. That mental state that you do not seek, justified belief, is sought by many people, especially priests and philosophers. But, in truth, beliefs cannot be justified except in relation to other beliefs, and even then, only fallibly. So, the quest for their justification can lead to an infinite regress, each step which would itself be subject to error.
Again, I know this.
Indeed, and as you have rightly remarked, it doesn't count as a revelation if I can tell you what you already know. Yet, notice that the remark is precisely what people who seek justified belief do not agree with.
What? I'm sorry, but that was too convoluted a comment for my allegedly wise mind to comprehend. Please explain what I am to notice about those people who seek justified belief.
Merely this. Suppose they just happen to be aware of the explanation of something. You and I would say they know it. But to them, no matter how good an explanation it is, and no matter how true and important and useful it may be, they still do not consider it to be knowledge. It is only if a god then comes along and reassures them that it is true, or that they imagine such a god or other authority, that they count it as knowledge. So, to them, it does count as a revelation if the authority tells them what they are already fully aware of.
I see that, and I see that they are foolish, because, for all they know, the authority may be toying with them, or trying to teach them some important lesson, or they may be misunderstanding the authority, or they may be mistaken in their belief that it is an authority.
Yes. So the thing they call knowledge, namely justified belief, is a chimera. It is unattainable to humans except in the form of self-deception. It is unnecessary for any good purpose and is undesired by the wisest among mortals.
I know.
Xenophanes knew it too, but he is no longer among the mortals.
Is that what you meant when you told the oracle that no one is wiser than I?
Hence, also, I wasn't referring to justified belief when I asked whether you are sure that I am before your eyes. I was only questioning how you can claim to be seeing clearly what is before your eyes when you also claim to be asleep.
Yes, you have caught me in an error, but surely only a trivial one. Indeed, you may not literally be before my eyes. Perhaps you are at my home on Olympus, sending me a mere likeness of yourself. But in that case, You are controlling that likeness, and I am seeing it and referring to it as you. So I am seeing you.
But that is not what I asked. I asked what is before your eyes, in reality.
Alright, before my eyes, in reality, there is a small room. Or if you want a literal reply, what is before my eyes is eyelids, since I expect they are shut. Yet I see from your expression that you want even more precision. Very well. Before my eyes are the inside surfaces of my eyelids.
And can you see those? In other words, is it really easy to see what is before your eyes?
Not at the moment, but that is only because I'm dreaming.
Is it only because you are dreaming? Are you saying that if you were awake, you would now be seeing the inside surfaces of your eyelids?
If I were awake with my eyelids still closed, then yes.
What colour do you see when you close your eyes?
In a room as dimly lit as this one? Black.
Do you think that the inside surfaces of your eyelids are black?
I suppose not.
So would you really be seeing them?
Not exactly.
And if you were to open your eyes, would you be able to see the room?
Only very vaguely. It is dark.
So I ask again, is it true that if you were awake, you could easily see what was before your eyes?
All right, not always, but nevertheless, when I am awake and with my eyes open and in bright light,
But not too bright, I suppose.
I must accept that when one is dazzled by the sun, one may see even less well than in the dark. Likewise, one may see one's own face behind a mirror, where there is in reality only empty space. One may sometimes see a mirage, or be fooled by a pile of crumpled clothes that happens to resemble a mythical creature.
Or one that may be fooled by dreaming of one.
Quite so. And conversely, whether sleeping or waking, we often fail to see things that are there in reality.
You have no idea how many such things there are.
No doubt. But still, when one is not dreaming and conditions are good for seeing...
And how can you tell whether conditions are good for seeing?
Ah, now you are trying to catch me in a circularity. You want me to say that one can tell that conditions are good for seeing when one can easily see what is there.
I want you not to say so.
It seems to me that you have been asking questions about me. What is in front of me, what I can easily see, whether I am sure, and so on. But I seek fundamental truths, of which I estimate that not a single one is predominantly about me. So let me stress again, I am not sure what is in front of my eyes, ever, with my eyes open or closed, asleep or awake. Nor can I be sure what is probably in front of my eyes, for how could I estimate the probability that I am dreaming when I think I am awake? Or that my whole previous life has been but a dream, in which it has pleased one of you immortals to imprison me?
Indeed.
I might even be a victim of mundane deception, such as those conjurers. We know that a conjurer is deceiving us because he shows us something that cannot be and then asks for money. But if he were to forgo this fee and show me something that can be but is not, how could I ever know? Perhaps this entire vision of you is not a dream after all, but some cunning conjurer's trick. On the other hand, perhaps you really are here in person, and I am awake after all. None of this I can ever be sure is so or not so. I can, however, conceive of knowing some of it.
Precisely. And is the same true of your moral knowledge? In regard to what is right and wrong, could you be mistaken or misled by the equivalent of mirages or tricks?
That seems harder to imagine, for in regard to moral knowledge, I need my senses very little. It is mainly just my own thoughts. I reason about what is right and wrong. or what makes a person virtuous or wicked. I can be mistaken, of course, in these mental deliberations, but not so easily deceived by outside tricks or illusion, for they affect only our senses and not our reason.
How, then, do you account for the fact that you Athenians are constantly squabbling among yourselves about what qualities constitute virtue or vice, and what actions are right or wrong?
Why is that puzzling? We disagree because it is easy to be mistaken. Yet, despite that, we also agree about many such issues. From this I speculate that where we have so far failed to agree, it is not because anything is actively deceiving us, but simply because some issues are hard to reason about, just as there are many truths in geometry that even Pythagoras did not know, but which future geometers may discover. As the otherwise mortal Xenophanes wrote, "The gods did not reveal from the beginning all things to us, but in the course of time, though seeking we may learn and know things better." This is what we Athenians have done in regard to moral knowledge. Through seeking we have learned and agreed upon the easy things, and in future by the same means, namely by refusing to hold any of our ideas immune from criticism, we may learn some matters not so light.
There is much truth in what you say, so take it a little further. If it is hard to be systematically deceived on moral issues, how is it that the Spartans disagree with you about some of those issues on which nearly all Athenians agree? The ones that you have just said are easy ones?
Because the Spartans learn many mistaken beliefs and values in early childhood.
Whereas the Athenians begin their flawless education at what age?
Again, you catch me in error. Yes, of course, we too teach our values to our young, and those must include our most serious misconceptions as well as our deepest wisdom. Yet, our values include being open to suggestions, tolerant of dissent, and critical of both dissent and received opinion. So, I suppose that the real difference between the Spartans and us is that their moral education enjoins them to hold their most important ideas immune from criticism, not to be open to suggestions, not to criticize certain ideas such as the traditions or their conceptions of the gods, not to seek the truth because they claim that they already have it. Hence, they do not believe that in the course of time they may learn and know things better. They agree among themselves because their laws and customs enforce conformity. We agree among ourselves, to the extent that we do, because through our tradition of endless critical debate, we have discovered some genuine knowledge. Since there is only one truth of any given matter, as we discover ideas closer to the truth, our ideas become closer to each other's, so we agree more. People who converge upon the truth converge with each other.
Indeed.
Moreover, since the Spartans never seek improvement, it is not surprising that they never find it. We, in contrast, have sought it by trying to correct our ideas and behaviour, and thereby we are well placed to learn more in the future.
It follows, then, that it is wrong for the Spartans to educate their children to hold their city's ideas, laws, and customs immune from criticism.
I thought you weren't going to reveal moral truths.
I can't help it if it follows logically from epistemology, but anyway, you already know this one.
Yes, I do, and I see what you are getting at. You are showing me that there are such things as mirages and tricks in regard to moral knowledge. Some of them are embodied in the Spartans' traditional moral choices. Because of their mistaken beliefs, their whole way of life misleads them and traps them. Because one of their mistaken beliefs is that they must take no steps to prevent their way of life from misleading and trapping them.
Yes.
Are there such traps embedded in our way of life? Of course, I think there aren't. But I would think that, wouldn't I? As Xenophanes also wrote, it's all too easy to attribute universal truth to mere local appearances. The Ethiops say that their gods are flat-nosed and black, while the Thracians say that theirs have blue eyes and red hair. Yet if cattle or horses or lions had hands and could draw and could sculpture like men, then the horses would draw their gods like horses and cattle like cattle.
So now you are imagining some Spartan Socrates who considers their ways virtuous and yours decadent.
And who considers us to be stuck in a trap, since we shall never willingly correct ourselves by adopting Spartan ways? Yes.
But does this Spartan Socrates, if he exists, worry that the Athenian Socrates may be right and he may be wrong? Was there a Spartan Xenophanes who suspected that the gods might not be as the Greeks they think they are?
Most certainly not.
So, since one of their ways is to preserve all their ways unchanged, then if he were right and you wrong,
then the Spartans must also have been right ever since they embarked on their present way of life. The gods must have revealed the perfect way of life to them at the outset. So, did you? Of course you didn't. Now, I see that the difference between our ways and theirs is not merely a matter of perspective, nor just a matter of degree. Let me restate it. If the Spartan Socrates is right that Athens is trapped in falsehoods, but Sparta is not, then Sparta, being unchanging, must already be perfect, and hence right about everything else too. Yet, in fact, they know almost nothing. One thing that they clearly do not know is how to persuade other cities that Sparta is perfect, even cities that have a policy of listening to arguments and criticism.
well, logically, it could be that the perfect way of life involves having few accomplishments and being wrong about most things. But yes, you are glimpsing on something important here.
Whereas, if I am right that Athens is not in such a trap, that implies nothing about whether we are right or wrong about any other matter. Indeed, our very idea that improvement is possible implies that there must be errors and inadequacies in our current ideas. I thank you, generous Apollo, for this glimpse into that important difference.
Yet, there is even more of a difference than you think. Bear in mind that the Spartans and Athenians alike are but fallible men and are subject to misconceptions and errors in all their thinking.
Wait, we are fallible in all our thinking? Is there literally no idea that we may safely hold immune from criticism?
Like what?
What about the truths of arithmetic, like 2 + 2 = 4, or the fact that Delphi exists? What about the geometrical fact that the angles of a triangle sum to 2 right angles?
Revealing no facts, I cannot confirm that all three of those propositions are even true. But more important than this, how did you come to choose those particular propositions as candidates for immunity from criticism? Why Delphi and not Athens? Why 2 + 2 and not 3 + 4? Why the theorem of Pythagoras? Was it because you decided that the propositions you chose would best make your point, because they were the most obviously, unambiguously true of all the propositions you considered using?
Yes.
But then how did you determine how obviously and unambiguously true each of those candidate propositions was compared to the others? Did you not criticize them? Did you not quickly attempt to see ways or reasons that they might conceivably be false?
Yes, I did. I see. Had I held them immune from criticism, I would have had no way of arriving at that conclusion.
So you are, after all, a thoroughgoing fallivist, though you mistakenly believed you were not.
I merely doubted it.
You doubted and criticized fallibilism itself, as a true fallibilist should.
Moreover, I had not criticized it. I could not have come to understand why it is true. My doubt improved my knowledge of an important truth, as knowledge held immune from criticism never can be improved.
This too you already knew, for it is why you always encourage everyone to criticize, even that which seems most obvious to you.
And why I set an example by doing it to them.
Perhaps. Now, consider, what would happen if the fallible Athenian voters made a mistake and enacted a law that was very unjust and unwise?
Which, alas, they often do.
Imagine a specific case, for the sake of argument, Suppose they were somehow firmly persuading that thieving is a high virtue from which many practical benefits flow, and that they abolished all laws forbidding it. What would happen?
Everyone would start thieving. Very soon, those that were best at thieving and living among thieves would become the wealthiest citizens. But most people would no longer be secure in their property, even most thieves. And all the farmers and artisans and traders would soon find it impossible to continue to produce anything worth stealing. So disaster and starvation would follow, while the promised benefits would not. And they would all realize that it had been a mistake.
Would they? Let me remind you again of the fallibility of human nature, Socrates. Given that they were firmly persuaded that thievery was beneficial, wouldn't the first reaction to those setbacks be that there was not enough thievery going on? Wouldn't they enact laws to encourage it still further?
Alas, yes, at first. Yet, no matter how firmly they were persuaded, these setbacks would be problems in their lives, which they would want to solve. A few among them would eventually begin to suspect that the increased thievery might not be the solution after all, so they would think about it more. They would have been convinced of the benefits of thievery by some explanation or other. Now, they would try to explain why the supposed solution didn't seem to be working. Eventually, they would find an explanation that seemed better. So, gradually, they would persuade others of that, and so on, until a majority again opposed thievery.
Aha! So salvation would come about through persuasion.
If you like. Thought, explanation, and persuasion. And now they would understand better why thievery is harmful. Through their new explanations.
By the way, the little story we have just imagined is exactly how Athens really does look from my point of view.
How he must laugh at us.
Not at all, Athenian. As I said, I honor you. Now let us consider what would happen if, instead of legalizing thievery, their error had been to ban debate, and to ban philosophy and politics and elections and that whole constellation of activities, and to consider them shameful.
I see. That would have the effect of banning persuasion, and hence it would block off the path to salvation that we have discussed. This is a rare and deadly sort of error. It prevents itself from being undone.
Or at least it makes salvation immensely more difficult. Yes, this is what Sparta looks like to me.
I see. And to me too, now that you point it out. In the past, I have often pondered the many differences between our two cities, for I must confess that there was, and still is, much that I admire about the Spartans, but I had never realized before now that those differences were all superficial, beneath their evident virtues and vices, beneath even the fact that they are bitter enemies of Athens. Sparta is the victim and the servant of a profound evil. This is a momentous revelation, noble Apollo, better than 1,000 declarations of the oracle, and I cannot adequately express my gratitude. I also see why you urge me always to bear human fallibility in mind. In fact, since you mentioned that some moral truths follow logically from epistemological considerations, I am now wondering whether they all do. Could it be that the moral imperative not to destroy the means of correcting mistakes is the only moral imperative, that all other truths follow from it? As you wish. Now, in regard to Athens and what you were saying about epistemology, if our prospects for discovering new knowledge are so good, why were you stressing the unreliability of the senses?
I was correcting your description of the quest for knowledge as striving to see beyond what is easy to see.
I meant that metaphorically. See in the sense of understand.
Yes. Nevertheless, you have conceded that even those things that you thought were easiest to see literally are in fact not easy to see at all without prior knowledge about them. In fact, nothing is easy to see without prior knowledge. All knowledge of the world is hard to come by.
Moreover, it follows that we do not come by it through seeing. It does not flow into us through our senses.
Exactly.
Yet, You say that objective knowledge is attainable. So, if it does not come to us through the senses, where does it come from?
Suppose I were to tell you that all knowledge comes from persuasion.
Persuasion again. Well, I would reply, with all due respect, that makes no sense. Whoever persuades me of something must first have discovered it himself. So in such a case, the relevant issue is where his knowledge came from.
Quite right. Unless...
And in any case, when I learn something through persuasion, it is coming to me via my senses.
No, there you are mistaken. It only seems that way to you.
What?
Well, you are learning things from me now, aren't you? Are they coming to you through your senses?
Yes, of course they are. Oh, no, they're not. But that is only because you, a supernatural being, are bypassing the senses and sending me knowledge in a dream.
Am I?
I thought you said that you were not here to play debating tricks. Are you denying your own existence now? When sophists do that, I usually take them at their word and stop arguing with them.
A policy that again bespeaks your wisdom, Socrates. But I have not denied my existence. I was only questioning what difference it makes whether I am real or not. Would it change your mind about anything you have learned about epistemology during this conversation?
Perhaps not.
Perhaps not? Come now, Socrates. You were boasting earlier that you and your fellow citizens are always open to persuasion.
Yes, I see.
Now, if I am only a figment of your imagination, then who has persuaded you?
Presumably, myself, unless this dream is coming neither from you nor within myself, but some other source.
But did you not say that you are open to persuasion by anyone? If dreams emanate from an unknown source, what difference should that make if they are persuasive? Are you not honor-bound as an Athenian to accept them?
It seems I am. But what if a dream were to emanate from a malevolent source?
That makes no fundamental difference either. Suppose that the source purports to tell you a fact. Then, if you suspect that the source is malevolent, you will try to understand what evil it is trying to perpetuate by telling you the alleged fact. But then, depending on your explanation, you may well decide to believe it anyway.
I see. For instance, if an enemy announces that he is planning to kill me, I may well believe him, despite his malevolence.
Yes. Or you may not. And if your closest friend purports to tell you a fact, you may likewise wonder whether he has been misled by a malevolent third party or is simply mistaken for any of countless reasons. Thus, situations can easily arise in which you disbelieve your closest friend and believe your worst enemy. What matters in all cases is the explanation you create within your own mind for the facts and for the observations and advice in question. But the case here is simpler. As I said, I reveal no facts. I am only making arguments.
I see. I have no need to trust the source if the argument itself is persuasive, and no way of using any source unless I also have a persuasive argument. Wait a moment. I've just realized something. You reveal no facts, but the god Apollo does reveal facts, hundreds of them every day through the oracle. Aha, I understand now. You are not Apollo, but a different god. You're evidently a god of knowledge, but several gods have an interest in knowledge. Athenia herself does, but I can tell you, you are not she.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. I don't mean from your appearance. I mean I can infer it from the detached way you speak of Athens. So, I think you are Hermes, god of knowledge and of messages and of information flow.
A fine thought. But, by the way, what makes you think that Apollo reveals no facts through the oracle?
Oh!
We have agreed that by reveal we mean telling the supplicant something he doesn't already yet know.
Are all its replies just jokes and tricks? As you wish, fleet Hermes. Then let me try to understand your argument about knowledge. I asked where knowledge comes from, and you directed my attention to this very dream. You asked whether it would make any difference to how I regard the knowledge I am learning from you if it turns out to have not been supernaturally inspired after all, and I had to agree that it would not. So I am to conclude that all knowledge originates from the same source of dreams, which is within ourselves.
Of course it does. Do you remember what Xenophanes wrote just after he said that objective knowledge is attainable by humans?
Yes. But as for certain truth, no man has known it, nor will he know it, neither of the gods. Yet, of all things of which I speak, and even if by chance he were to utter the perfect truth, he would himself not know it. So there, he's saying that although objective knowledge is obtainable, justified belief, certain truth, is not.
Yes, we've covered all that, but your answer is in the next line.
For all that is a woven web of guesses. Guesses!
Yes, conjectures.
But wait, what about when knowledge does not come from guesswork? As when a god sends me a dream. What about when I simply hear ideas from other people? They have guessed them, but I then obtain them merely by listening.
You do not. In all those cases, you still have to guess in order to acquire knowledge.
I do?
Of course. Have you yourself not been misunderstood, even by people trying hard to understand you?
Yes.
Have you, in turn, not often misunderstood what someone means, even when he is trying to tell you as clearly as he can?
Indeed, I have. Not least during this conversation.
Well, this is not an attribute of philosophical ideas only, but of all ideas. Remember when you all got lost on your way here from the ship? And why?
It was because we realized, with hindsight, that we completely misunderstood the directions given to us by the captain.
So, when you got the wrong idea of what he meant, despite having listened attentively to every word he said, where did that wrong idea come from? Not from him, presumably.
I see. It must come from within ourselves. It must be a guess, though until this moment, it had never even remotely occurred to me that I'd been guessing.
So, why would you expect that anything different happens when you do understand someone correctly?
I see. When we hear something being said, we guess what it means without realizing what we're doing. This is beginning to make sense to me. Except, guesswork isn't knowledge.
Indeed, most guesses are not new knowledge. Although guesswork is the origin of all knowledge, it is also the source of error, and therefore, what happens to an idea after it has been guessed is crucial.
So let me combine that insight with what I know of criticism. A guess might come from a dream, or it might just be a wild speculation or random combination of ideas or anything. But then we do not just accept it blindly, or because we imagine it is authorized, or because we want it to be true. Instead, we criticize it and discover its flaws.
Yes, that is what you should do at any rate.
Then we try to remedy those flaws by altering the idea or dropping it in favor of others. And the alterations and other ideas are themselves guesses and are themselves criticized. Only when we fail in these attempts either to reject or improve an idea do we provisionally accept it.
That can work. Unfortunately, people do not always do what can work.
Thank you, Hermes. It is exciting to learn of this single process through which all knowledge originates, whether it is our knowledge of a sea captain's directions to Delphi, or knowledge of right and wrong that we have carefully refined for years, or theorems of arithmetic or geometry or epistemology revealed to us by a god.
It all comes from within, from conjecture and criticism.
Wait, it comes from within, even if revealed by a god.
And is just as fallible as ever. Yes, your argument covers that case just like any other.
Marvelous. But now, what about objects that we just experience in the natural world? We reach out and touch an object, and hence experience it out there. Surely that is a different kind of knowledge, a kind which, fallible or not, really does come from without, at least in the sense that our own experience is out there, at the location of the object.
You loved the idea that all those other different kinds of knowledge originate in the same way and are improved in the same way. Why is direct sensory experience an exception? What if it just seems radically different?
Surely you are now asking me to believe in a sort of all-encompassing conjuring trick resembling the fanciful notion that the whole of life is really a dream, for it would mean that the sensation of touching an object does not happen where we are experiencing it happening, namely in the hand that touches, but in the mind, which I believe is located somewhere in the brain. So all my sensations of touch are located inside my skull, where in reality nothing can touch while I still live. And whenever I think I am seeing a vast, brilliantly illuminated landscape, all that I am really experiencing is likewise located entirely inside my skull, where in reality it is constantly dark.
Is that so absurd? Where do you think all the sights and sound of this dream are located?
I accept that they are indeed in my mind, but that is my point. Most dreams portray things that are simply not there in external reality. To portray things that are there is surely impossible without some input that does not come from the mind, but from those things themselves.
Well reasoned, Socrates, but is that input needed in the source of your dream, or only in your ongoing criticism of it?
You mean that we first guess what is there? And then what? We test our guesses against the input from our senses.
Yes.
I see. And then we hone our guesses and fashion the best ones into a sort of waking dream of reality.
Yes. A waking dream that corresponds to reality. But there is more. It is a dream of which you gain control. You do that by controlling the corresponding aspects of external reality.
It is a wonderful, unified theory and consistent as far as I can tell. But am I really to accept that I myself, the thinking being that I call I, has no direct knowledge of the physical world at all, but can only receive arcane hints of it through flickers and shadows that happen to impact on my eyes and other senses, and that what I experience as reality is never more than a waking dream composed of conjectures originating from within myself?
Do you have an alternative explanation?
No, and the more I contemplate this one, the more delighted I become. A sensation of which I should be aware, yet I am also persuaded. Everyone knows that a man is a paragon of animals, but if this epistemology you tell me is true, then we are infinitely more marvellous creatures than that. Here we sit, forever imprisoned in the dark, almost sealed cave of our skull, guessing. We weave stories of an outside world. Worlds, actually. A physical world, a moral world, an abstract world of geometrical shapes and so on. But we are not satisfied with merely weaving, nor with mere stories. We want true explanations. So we seek explanations that remain robust when we test them against those flickers and shadows, and against each other, and against criteria of logic and reasonableness and everything else that we can think of. And then we change them no more. We have understood some objective truth, and as if that were not enough, what we understand we then control. It's like magic, only real. We are like gods.
Well, sometimes you discover some objective truth and exert some control as a result, but often, when you think you have achieved any of that, you haven't.
Yes. But having discovered some truths, can we not make better guesses and further criticisms and tests, and so understand more and control more, as Xenophanes says?
Yes.
So we are like the gods.
Somewhat. And yes, to answer your next question, you can indeed become ever more like the gods, in ever more ways. If you choose to, though, you will always remain fallible.
Why on earth would we not choose to? I see. Sparta and such like.
Yes, but also because some may argue that fallible gods are not a good thing.
All right, but if we choose to, are you saying that there is no upper bound to how much we could eventually understand and control and achieve?
sadishinof.